Hello my tubers, it's me. It's been a while because I just had a baby. He's 5 weeks old today, so I didn't just have a baby, but I haven't slept through the night, so I don't really know what time is right now. I guess 5 weeks still could be just having a baby. I wanted to just talk about my birth experience because I watched so many of these when I was pregnant and I found them so helpful. So I hope that this is helpful for somebody. I had a healthy pregnancy. Everything was completely normal the whole time up until I was 39 weeks and 2 days pregnant. And I started feeling like my hands and feet were itching at night. And this could potentially be cholestasis, which is, you can look it up, but it's where your liver is not processing the blood properly because of the pregnancy hormones, and it's really, really dangerous for the baby. So they generally, with cholestasis, induce at 37 weeks. Like the second that the baby's done cooking, they're like, get it out. And I was 2 weeks over that. I called on Wednesday night and said, hey, I have itchy feet and hands. Is there anything I should do tonight? Or, I was just thinking they're gonna say like, oh yeah, you're fine. I just wanted to call and be sure. They said, come in, we're gonna monitor you and potentially induce you. So I called them at 11:30 and then I heard, come in and bring your bags as if you're going to stay because you might be staying. And I was like, what the fuck? I was not expecting that at all because it had been completely normal the entire time. So we got to the hospital around midnight. All right, so life happened and it's a new day. Basically, I arrived at the hospital. Obviously it was up to me, but they said that we recommend that we induce you because if you do have cholestasis, he should have been out 2 weeks ago. It all happened very fast, it seemed like, especially because it was at 11:30 at night when it all happened. I was just getting ready to sleep for the day, and instead I'm at the hospital. Kind of upsetting at first, but then I just was like, it's all happening. This is what's meant to happen. It's all gonna work out. I'll be back. All right, I'm gonna try this again. I did a hypnobirthing course through the Positive Birthing Company. I'll link them. And it was really, really helpful and informative. So I'm gonna go into a fair amount of detail. So buckle up. I got there around midnight, got my COVID swab, bloods taken, and I got monitors strapped to me. I had to be constantly monitored because cholestasis can be dangerous, so because the labs can take up to 5 days, so that's why they induced me. I was already at 39 weeks. Waiting an extra 5 days could have been dangerous potentially, so I decided yes, I want to get induced. I want to be safe with this. Go to sleep. I originally wanted to go unmedicated, not be induced, not have any sort of interventions, but obviously when you're getting induced, you're starting with interventions. It was kind of shocking for sure because everything had been going so well up to this point, and not what I wanted exactly, but I just figured I want a healthy baby at the end of this. That's the most important thing, and it must be all happening for a reason. It must all be, this must be where we need to be right now. So it took me a few minutes to accept it and kind of not be upset about it, but your mindset's definitely very important during labor, and I didn't want to start out with this, why is this happening, blah, 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 so. Oh my goodness. Is it time to wake up? You're over your nap? Okay, we'll try this again another time. So anyways, I have a very noisy baby and he's right here with me, so you might hear him. I think the continuous monitoring thing was the thing I was most disappointed about because I wanted to move around as much as possible. But it wasn't impossible with the monitors, it just made it a bit harder. The monitors also made it very hard to sleep because they were uncomfortable and the nurses had to keep coming in and checking on them. And so I like didn't sleep at all with the monitors, like very intermittent, like 5-minute naps maybe. I got my very first cervical check and I was high up and closed according to the nurse. It didn't really hurt. It was uncomfortable. It hurt a little, but it wasn't bad at all. Then I took first misoprostol pill, like a prostaglandin pill at 3 a.m. and I took it orally. And the nurses and midwives said that since I was like closed and all of that stuff, it could take up to 3 days for an induction. I had like very mild contractions after that, and then they kind of died down throughout the night. Didn't really sleep because of the monitors being adjusted, and then I had my next pill at 7:30 in the morning. More very light contractions that happened after the pill and then slowly died out. And then I had another pill at 11:30 in the morning. And then I had light contractions like throughout the day until 4:30 I got a Foley balloon inserted. So that's where they put like a water balloon inside of your cervix and fill it up and let it kind of like act as pressure, I guess, to open up your cervix. And there's this bulb up in there and there's like a thing hanging out and it's taped to your leg. It's taped to your leg. It was very uncomfortable getting it. Not necessarily inserted. Yeah, it was uncomfortable getting it inserted. Like if you ever had an IUD, it's like that, but that it goes on for a few minutes because they need to like get it in there. Oh, honey. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. It wasn't too bad getting it inserted, but once it was inserted, the thing that's taped to your leg, it's connected to you. And so like any movement you make pulls on the balloon, and that was like the first real like pain I felt, and real contractions. Like I had real strong contractions for like 20 or so minutes after that. I couldn't really like move freely through them because of the monitors, and because the thing was taped to my leg, every movement I did yanked on it and it was very uncomfortable. Then around 6 I went to go pee and I couldn't pee. Like it felt like I had a UTI, you know, where it's like burning and nothing's coming out and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I got a UTI already. And then I birthed out the Foley balloon while I was trying to pee. And it was so weird. I was like, what is happening? The midwife and nurses said like, oh, it'll be a while, and call us in when you think that it might be like starting to feel loose, like the thing on your leg, the string attached to your leg might be feeling loose. I didn't think it was gonna come out on its own, so it was very shocking to have it come out on the toilet. I was like it took me a minute to register. I was like, what just happened? Before I went into this whole process, I asked them to not tell me how dilated I was because it can change very quickly or very slowly. The number doesn't necessarily equal how far away you are from giving birth because everyone's body's different, every labor is different. So I had asked, don't tell me, but they checked for their, so they could know what they needed to do. And I was about 3 centimeters dilated after the Foley balloon came out. So around this time, I also got my IV inserted because I was group B strep positive. So they recommend antibiotics for that. And I think this was like the worst. Oh, it was like, yeah, it was like, oh, I hated it. I'm so weirded out by stuff being in my veins. So it was awful for me personally. I didn't like this part. My vein blew twice, I think. I had to have it inserted multiple times, and the penicillin stung, it burned. So that was not fun. Oh, baby. Yeah, I personally was freaked out by the IV. It made me so tense because I was so like mentally freaked out about it. It didn't actually hurt that bad, you know, it's like a little pinch in your arm and whatever and the burning on your arm, but I was so freaked out about it. It made my whole body tense. Each time I got a dose of penicillin, I got really tense again. So I had to like really work on relaxing, meditating, like really taking deep breaths, calming myself down, so I didn't like stall my own labor by being so freaked out about the IV. I hated it personally. Some people don't even care at all, but I did not like that part. So, and I also had to end up getting another IV placed later. So I think that it might have been placed a little bit wonky because the next IV that I got actually hurt a little bit less and was less uncomfortable. So I might have just had a really bad, hi Happy. Honestly, the IV was worse than the Foley balloon, in my opinion, and the contractions caused by the Foley balloon. My contractions were picking up a bit from the getting the Foley balloon inserted. I was using the TENS machine and some counter pressure, and showering a bit helped, but they were pretty strong. Or they were getting stronger at this point. I was still able to breathe through them, not moan, and stay very relaxed in between the contractions. At this point, it was the evening of the next day, so it had almost been 24 hours, and the hospital got so insanely busy that they didn't come in from like 10 until 3 a.m. Like no one came in. I missed a dose of penicillin. They were so full that they were delivering babies in like postpartum rooms and stuff like that. So it was honestly a blessing because I got to get some rest because no one was coming in to check on the monitors. So I was able to sleep for a few hours. Again, it was really helpful to have like a good mindset about it because I could have been like annoyed, like, why is no one paying attention to me? Why can't we like get on with this? I'm in pain, blah, blah, blah. But I just chose to look at it as like, this is a good thing. It was meant to happen that they got so busy that they couldn't come in because I was able to get some rest. I was like, this is how it was meant to happen. And I was able to stay relaxed and positive about it. And I think that birthing course like really helped. It helped me recognize how important that is. So that was so nice, getting a few hours of sleep. And then Liam, my husband, was laying on the tiny bed with me and my water broke all over him at 3:30 in the morning. Yeah, that was fun for both of us. And then from then on I was awake. I was still being continuously monitored. Honestly, like up to this point, labor would have been so easy if I didn't have the IV in me and the monitor strapped to me. Like, they were the most annoying part of the whole thing at this point because like I was able to relax between contractions and like they weren't so bad and all that stuff, but I was just constantly kind of uncomfortable because of the things that were attached to me. It was a mild discomfort. I survived. And then throughout the night, I was getting surges or contractions every 3 to 5 minutes at a fairly uncomfortable pain level. And by 5:30 in the morning, I needed the TENS machine, and I was moaning through contractions instead of just breathing through them. I tried a shower at like 7:30. I had another hot shower at like 9:30, and the hot water felt really good on my back, and it allowed me to kind of stand up and labor a bit. And I got to take off the monitors briefly. Oh, yeah, so I wanted to shower and stand up and see if I could get things moving on my own, because I really wanted to try and labor without Pitocin, because it would mean constantly being hooked up to the IV, because in between doses of antibiotics, they were allowed to disconnect me, leave the thing in my vein, which still freaked me out, but I was allowed to be like disconnected from it. But Pitocin, I'd have to be constantly connected to the drip. So I really wanted to avoid that, but my contractions, even though they were strong, they had started spacing out a bit more. The midwife recommended Pitocin to like try and get things moving. So it had been like 2-ish days, I guess, and I was very tired. I had kind of slowed down on the eating. I was allowed to eat, and honestly, if I wasn't allowed to, I would have anyway. But at this point, the contractions were strong enough that I didn't really want anything more than like saltines or applesauce. I was too uncomfortable, I guess, and I was too worried about vomiting it all up. So I was definitely getting tired at this point, exhausted for sure. So the midwives recommended Pitocin, and so I was like, okay, fine. I got my IV replaced around this time, and I asked for nitrous for the IV replacement because I knew I would get really tense and the contractions were happening at a point where I didn't know if I could bring myself back down again in between contractions, because I didn't know, they were just getting stronger, so I didn't know if I had any time to really take a breather and relax from the IV. So I got the nitrous, I got my IV replaced, and with the nitrous at the hospital that I was at, you can't leave the bed. So I was confined to the bed. I couldn't move around. I had the nitrous, I had my IV in, I had my Pitocin going at 1 unit. 11 in the morning, I started the Pitocin with the nitrous in bed. And this was definitely the most painful and uncomfortable part, was staying in bed during these contractions. The nitrous made me like feel high, I guess, to where I didn't care about the IV, so that worked. That's what I wanted it to do. I didn't tense up from the IV. Honestly, I didn't even notice it. All I noticed was my contractions. I remember like looking at my mom and my husband, and I was like, I'm fucked up. But I still felt the pain through it. But I was able to stay relaxed for my IV, so it worked out perfectly. Once the Pitocin started at 11, my surges got so intense, and instead of the natural ones that I had been feeling, they came on so strong. They came on without a rhythm. They would come on one after another sometimes. They would get stronger and then go down and then get even stronger and then go down. It was just like all over the place. I couldn't really breathe through them anymore or really prepare. So at this point I started screaming. So it was very hard to stay on top of them when they were just like completely all over the place. I was death gripping my husband. He went to go to the bathroom and my mom sat down, and I grabbed her hair, I grabbed her, I think her sweatshirt, and started choking her. I was just like reaching out and like just putting all of my force into it. I don't know why. It didn't help, but I had felt like 5 hours had passed in this hour. Like, it was so intense, the contractions that I was having. And I remember thinking like, Pitocin is evil, Pitocin is the devil's drug, like I hate Pitocin. I was thinking all of these things about Pitocin. And an hour later, they checked me. I was at 6 centimeters. They didn't tell me. They told my mom and my husband, and they said, now's a good time to go to the tub room. And so I had them, my birthing partners, make the decision for me, because at this point I wasn't really talking. And I had wanted to labor in the tub, so thankfully they knew that and they could advocate for me, and we got to go to the tub room, even though at that point I didn't even, like, I was thinking in my head, like, I can't do this for very much longer. I wasn't thinking I can't do this. I was just like, I can't do this much longer. I was so exhausted. The contractions were so intense. So they made the decision for me to go to the tub room, which I'm so grateful for. I remember I was laying in bed. They had just checked me and told my husband how dilated I was, and I remember asking him, I was like, can I do this? Because I didn't want to hear the number, because I knew, like, if I heard 6, I would have been like, oh, I'm barely halfway there. So instead I asked, can I do this? And he said, we're gonna have this baby today. That really, really helped me stay on track and be like, all right, we're doing this, like, I can do this. And so, like, with that, I kind of made up my mind. I was like, we're getting this done. Pain relief left my head at that point. So by 12:40, I got in the tub. The Pitocin was up to 8 units at this point. And only 45 minutes after being 6 centimeters, at 12:55, I was fully dilated. And my body began pushing while I was in the tub. So literally 45 minutes after thinking like, I can't do this much longer, I was fully dilated. So I'm so glad that I didn't hear the number 6, because that might have, my birth might have gone very differently. I don't know. The tub helped so much with the contractions, so much more than the nitrous. Like, I don't even remember the contractions that I was having in the tub versus the ones that I had on nitrous in the bed were so incredibly strong. Yeah, the pushing was just as intense as the Pitocin contractions were, but it was in a different way. It was more tiring, but I felt way more in control of my response. It started to come in waves again, instead of just like all over the place like the Pitocin contractions had done. So I could bear down during the pushes. I felt like I was doing something, but I was so exhausted by this point, so it was also very, very tiring. So I pushed over 2.5 hours, and I was so exhausted by the pushing stage that I just kept my eyes closed and was fed water and Gatorade, and I just like kind of had to find the strength within me to keep going, because it was almost 40 hours of labor at this point with very little sleep, and the last day pretty much no food and just water and Gatorade. So I went inward and I made it happen somehow. I was able to breathe deeply through some pushes. There were some where I was screaming. That was very painful in like a burning way. I kept thinking to myself that I was the only one that was gonna get this baby out. I was the only one that could do it, so I needed to just keep going. I barely remember anything from the tub. People were having conversations. I didn't really know what they were talking about. I was just inward. I don't know how else to describe it. I was like deep in the zone, I guess. Yeah, so he was crowning for, I want to say, about a half an hour. which burned, but I think it may have helped because I barely tore. I had 2 first-degree tears. I guess was a good thing that he came out so slowly. Like, it felt like time wasn't passing in the normal way anyway. So, and as his head was fully coming out, that really hurt really badly, but it was over so quickly. As soon as his head was out, his body was out in one more push, and like they handed him to me and I was just like, oh my god, there's a baby. And like the pain was just over. Like it all was just over immediately, you know? So that was so amazing. And we held him in the tub for a bit, and then Liam held onto him. I had to climb out of the tub, and with the umbilical cord hanging out of me, and I don't know how I did it, but I got out of the tub and walked to the bed with it hanging out of me. It was very uncomfortable. And then I birthed the placenta. I barely even noticed it because I had my baby on me. I got stitched up. I also barely noticed that. And then I got the fundal massage where they like press onto your uterus to get the blood and fun stuff out of there, and that wasn't that bad after all that I had been through. And the stitching wasn't that bad after all that I had been through. So yeah, after having the baby, it was all pretty easy. After that, there's a whole bunch of postpartum stuff. So yeah, that was the whole birth story, like what actually happened. And like once he was born, I was just like so amazed that he existed, that like everything that had happened before and everything that happened after, like postpartum and the stitching and delivering the placenta, like I just didn't really care about any of it. Like it didn't seem like that big of a deal. It didn't seem bad at all. It was just so incredible, like having him there with me, that it was all worth it, basically. So he was born at 3:30 in the birthing tub. He was born underwater after a 39-hour total induction, and he weighed 8.5 pounds. And it was the most intense thing I've ever done, both mentally and physically, but I would do it over in a heartbeat for him. And I honestly would go through labor and delivery twice instead of being pregnant again. So it was so intense, but the reward was also so intense. Yeah, afterwards I felt so good about it. Even postpartum, healing like the stitches and the swelling and the bleeding, and learning to breastfeed, and just overall exhaustion. Still, my pelvis was like not feeling amazing because I had SPD during pregnancy. It was tough to get through, and it was all part of it. But yeah, I feel so positive about the whole experience, like, and I'm so glad that I got to experience the full spectrum of how it felt and how the pushing felt. Like, I'm so glad I got to experience it all, because I feel like for me, it's what I wanted. I wanted the full experience, and I'm so glad that I got it. And I think that it made, after giving birth to him, it like just being able to think back on the amount that I felt, and like I really felt alive, you know, like I'm so grateful that I got to experience birth exactly how I did. It was amazing. If you're trying for a vaginal birth and you have to be induced, just know that you can do it. And it was about a 40-hour labor, but it was only the last 4 or 5 hours that were so so intense, like 4 or 5 hours, and the other 35 hours I could do any day, you know? It was discomfort, and the last 4 or 5 hours were the real uphill battle. I would do it all over again instantly, and I would do it all over again instead of being pregnant. Finally, after I gave birth, they took the IV out of my arm, and that was like a second birth because I absolutely hated that thing. Now that I've been through it, I'm so grateful for all the birth vlogs and experiences that I've watched people talk about. It was really helpful for me to kind of get a feel for all the different things that could happen. But when you are there giving birth, it is entirely up to you to get through it. So get through it however you need to. And if you want to give birth with an induction, with Pitocin, without an epidural, it can be done. And I think that, I don't know if I would have been able to do it if I hadn't prepared and I hadn't learned about what was happening to my body. I feel so positively about it, even though the Pitocin contractions were on another level. I am so grateful for how it all happened. I feel so positive about it, and let me know if there's any videos you guys want me to make, and subscribe for more sporadic videos because I have a baby now, and as you saw at the beginning of this video, it takes me a little bit to get things done. If you're pregnant, you can do it. Honestly, I loved labor and delivery way more than being pregnant. It's intense, and it's the hardest thing in the world when you're going through it, but afterwards it can be very, very amazing looking back on it. So yeah, I hope I said that right. You can do it. I believe in you, and I'll see you later.